Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Hey.
Audio rolling.
Okay.
Welcome back to Detroit is Different podcast. And today I have somebody that is, like I always say, like, this is my homie, this is my people. Okay, we don't talk all the time, but ever since the connection was made between me and this fabulous artist, it's been a bond on so many levels, But for you all, it may be like, you know, the way that Mary J. Blige is the queen of hip-hop soul.
Okay.
The queen of hip-hop spoken word. Like, on so many levels. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, that's intersecting the Nas, Jeezy, Talib Kweli, and so many other artists. That's just off of mine. And anybody in the D definitely knows this connection between hip-hop, poetry, spoken word, and just all-around style, all-around cool, all around so much more.
D-girl, hey.
Happen to be here. Jessica Care Moore, how are you today?
What up, though? So happy. I'm warm, despite how cold it is. It's the first day of spring, and I have on like 4 layers.
I know.
So,
and Jessica was like, "Why you got me out here?" It was like, "Damn, you just knocked 2 seconds ago."
Yo, I didn't want to stand outside for 2 seconds. You know, you would think that I would be used to it by now, but I'm not. I don't like it.
Exactly.
I don't like it. But you ran in it. You a gangster, you know. We both worked out this morning for the record. So y'all move y'all bodies. If you haven't moved your body today, you seeing this, me and Kari have both moved our bodies this morning. So do something with your body. He ran in the cold, so because he crazy.
Exactly.
Yes. But I'm at Pure Bar at 7 a.m. because I have my own different kind of crazy.
Exactly.
But I love it.
So we start this, and you were kind of already getting into that. The Detroit is Different story always starts with the origin. Your people, your family, what led to your fam being in the D?
Oh, my family. Well, my daddy. You know, my daddy is from Alabama, like everybody's daddy. Huntsville, Madison, Alabama.
Wow.
He's buried in Madison. It is so deep that you start with my daddy and start with my origin story because it's my father's 100th year. His centennial birthday was March 12th.
Wow.
So he would have been, my dad was born in 1924. So I'm one generation removed from some deep shit in the South. Let me say that.
Also, that means it's going to be other questions I have. You have one of them, like, old parents.
Yeah, one of them. The other one was quite young.
Okay, but still, you know, having an old parent, like, you know, people that grow up, it's almost like people say, like, you know, single children and whatever. Like, people that have, like, the old parents always, it's like a different flow and everything.
Well, it's okay. I didn't have an old parent. I had a wild daddy. We didn't know, my daddy didn't know he was old, and we didn't know my daddy was old. I didn't know my daddy was old till he died. And I was like, what happened? My daddy old? Like, no. We had a wild Cadillac driving from Alabama, Detroit, West Side, dancing, cussing out white folks at the Canadian border daddy. Like, my daddy was an energy full. It was like me. I am my father's child.
so let's get into this. So Huntsville, Alabama, and if people know, Alabama is definitely one of those tracks where a lot of that migration people came straight from Alabama.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he already had people up this way.
And if he didn't, he brought people from Alabama and made people his way. He might have had some. We had some folks here. Most of our folks are from Alabama. We didn't have a lot of family in Detroit, but my daddy was a construction worker. He went to the Army when he was probably below the age you're supposed to go to the Army. Like, went really young. He was still a teenager. Dropped out of school. Didn't finish high school. Went to the Army. He was in one of them wars. I mean, he was older, so he might have been like Korean War possibly. And he moved. He came up here up south. And worked construction. He had a construction company called Tom's Trucking, and so he didn't work for the plants like everybody said. Their daddy and mama, they worked for GM, Chrysler. He didn't work on the assembly line. He had his own company.
So also this is interesting as like right now people talk about the opportunities in contracting. I just finished interviewing AGI. Shout out Louise and Tanya about what that is. But you know, when we think of like covenant laws, deed restriction laws, what black people can't get to, a place where a lot of those laws exist sadly even to this day,
Yeah.
is in that business of construction.
Yeah.
And what could be done and what couldn't be done.
Deep.
What do you think it was about that business that made your dad say, "No, I'm gonna figure this out"?
I mean, he was a hard hat kind of wearing daddy. I mean, he was just one of those. First of all, he can't work for other people. He's like me, and so he just didn't have the personality to be somebody on somebody's plantation somewhere. And he's a very free spirited. Traveling. I don't know if he traveled the world in that Cadillac, but he traveled the country, and I think he just saw himself as a leader and as a boss. And I never knew my daddy to work for anybody. I just knew he had Tom's Trucking, that he had these trucks, and they had walkie-talkies, and that he had cement. And so he like laid down our driveway. Wow. Like he helped build Livonia Mall. So he laid down lots of streets in this city. And so I think that's the foundation of who I am. I'm a work. I mean, you talk about hip hop, like I'm a blue collar poet, more than anything. I'm definitely like a workhorse. And the poetry is connected to work ethic. And the reason why I'm still here after 30 years of doing poetry all over the place is because of my work ethic. I work hard.
All right, so your mom's journey.
My mom is different. So my mom, talking about Detroit is different. My mom is different. My daddy met my mom in Canada partying through a friend. She was 17 years old, and they were married and had my brother Mark by the time she was 18.
Wow.
So that she met her in Detroit, and then we say, he knocked her over the head, but she came over to she came over to Detroit. He asked permission to marry my mother and father. My father's, my mother's origin story is she was born in Wolverhampton, England, and she was raised in Canada. She came over in the Aquitania boat. And what's really deep about this, so years ago I did my first artist residency with Radcliffe Bailey. He's a wonderful painter out of Atlanta that unfortunately, we just lost Radcliffe very young in his early 50s. Dear friend of mine, and he gave me my first artist residency. So for 3 weeks, I was at this artist residency in New Smyrna, Florida, not knowing what I was doing there with this famous painter. So it was like 7 writers, 7 composers, and 7 visual artists. I was with the visual artists group. Like Radcliffe was like, "You want to go to this residency with me in Florida?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." He's like, "Okay, well, just apply for it." Okay, so I applied. And he brought me, and for the first few days, I was like, "Why am I here?"
Because you were with the visual artists,
I was with the painters.
I was not. Not the writers. You were with the painters.
I was with the painters. So I'm bonding with the writers. I'm bonding with the composers. Daniel Romain, Bernard Romain, the violinist, was the lead composer. So I became friends with him. I'm working with him. I'm working with Luke Aaron Clark. He's on the piano. I know how to collaborate with musicians. I knew how to bond with writers. I didn't know what to do with them visual artists. So I had my first little flat piece of canvas. They showed me how to do some gesso, and then I went thrifting with Radcliffe, and then he took me to the art library, and then I went crazy. And then I said, "Oh, Radcliffe, wait, I think I'm a conceptual artist." He's like, "Yes, you're a conceptual artist." He said, "You can think the way you think and the things you write about, you can absolutely make art that people can look at." And so before I left there, I ended up taking over, to make a long story short, the entire sculpture studio, and I built my first art installation. And I did political broadsides, and I made I was thinking a lot about my family, and I was away from this was the only time, the longest I ever been away from my son, King. And that time I didn't have an iPhone then. So I think we were doing Skype on my computer. So it was hard, and I cried a lot. But I was talking to my family in Canada. My Uncle Graham then was alive, and he said, of all the places, my Uncle Graham, who had lived in like Alberta and Nova Scotia my whole life, in Canada and Vancouver, said, "Oh, I've been in New Smyrna, Florida." And I was like, "What? How's that possible?" So we started having these conversations about where I was, and then I started thinking about my mother's journey, and then my father, and I ended up, my first painting was about my mother and father. So it's a juxtaposition of the Aquitania boat, which my mother came over when she was 3 in 1944. 1944, she was born. 1947 was the boat ride with her whole family to Canada to go to Nova Scotia. And how I was able to go to Nova Scotia years ago when I was performing there, and I went to the pier, my mother docked. I paid $12 for a printout, and my whole family had a whole printout of my family's docking papers from my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother's sisters, and her brother. All my uncles, aunties, everything. And I thought about how interesting it was that I couldn't do that for my father. And I couldn't. And to this day, I'm always trying to search for, past my grandmother and grandfather, because they were born in the
They were born in
hundreds or the late 1800s.
Yeah, 1924. Yeah.
Come on, we talking about late. This is my grandmother and grandfather, so I'm that close to my ancestors, like who were West African. I know that from DNA swabs for me and my brother. West African people from Benin. And also Cherokee Indians, you know, people who are making babies together, West Africans and indigenous people. Yeah.
So it's interesting you bring this up too.
Yeah.
The relationship between Canada and black folks, because oftentimes we don't think that, but Nova Scotia, like, I don't know if people know this, like The Rock himself, like the Rocky Johnson's father is from Nova Scotia. Also, Cheatham, I think it's Cheatham, Ontario. Like it's pockets where it's a lot of black folks.
Oh yeah, we got history there.
Canada, like they go back, and I mean, I guess,
and they have turmoil with their history too. You know, the blueberry fields that were there in Nova Scotia that they bulldozed over. They bulldozed over black communities there that were right off the water, and it's called Africa Town, if I'm not mistaken, is the name. There's people there that's to this day protest and built homes on top of that land that was taken from their families, and they had their own postal service. They had same thing, similar to like Redwood, you know, different or what happened in Tulsa, you know, all these spaces where black folks were independent of white folks, you know, and that was a problem for white folks and white governments, and so Canada always kind of gets this, you know, nice bill of health when it comes to race relations, but there's definitely a problem with First Nation people there, indigenous people there, you know, that were treated badly in school, and some of them went up missing. I mean, there's lots of things that I know on the ground there from black folks that have had to fight in Canada. But yes, that's definitely a part of our story. Like black folks in Canada have a connection. Yeah.
So now, coming back, your mom comes to Detroit.
She comes to Detroit.
What are your grandparents like? Okay,
they were wonderful. They said my mom just told my grandfather Arthur Bell told my mom, you can marry him, just don't become an American citizen. They didn't want him to, and she's not.
Why do you think your grandfather had that perspective?
He just wanted her to keep her British passport. You know, who knows why? Because they were Canadian after a while, and so right now I'm working on my dual citizenship because my mother was born before the war, and it's a matriarchal system. I'm entitled to dual citizenship, so I can get the UK. She's never become a Canadian citizen. They kept her British, and she's really not British at all. She's just born there. She was there till she was 3, so her connection to Britain is very, very limited. She's never been. I've been countless times. I even traveled to Wolverhampton for my mother. I had a gig there. I had friends there. I've been there more than once. And I went to the address where she thought her house used to be, and it wasn't there. But, you know, took pictures for her. She kind of lives through me in my travels. But she's been in Detroit since she was 17.
All right, so let's talk about that, Detroit. What neighborhood, what blocks do you remember coming up in?
Yeah, because my mother and father lived, my brother Johnny and Mark, they lived over here in Holland Park first. Okay. But then they moved when me and my sister were born, we Ward and Tireman. That was my childhood. Right there on Tireman and Belton, right across the street from Dearborn. So yeah.
Okay, so that,
West Side.
That is like when I think about that neighborhood, I think of like Chuck's Millionaire Club. I think of like,
that's hilarious.
I think of
oh my God. I think of like Camelot Movie Theater. Hemlock Park. Hemlock Park. St. Alphonsus is where I went to grade school. Okay. Mackenzie, and I went to Mackenzie for. Not Mackenzie. My brother went to Mackenzie. I went to McFarland for kindergarten. That was my public school kindergarten.
So, what was the neighborhood like? Because also
amazing.
Also, that community, I think, up to like some of the challenges that were like pervasive in other communities weren't like as pressing in that neighborhood throughout the 80s. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like some neighborhoods, like over
you have to go across Joy Road to get to it. So I was younger. My brothers found the trouble over in Joy Road. But on our side, our block was, and like you, how you know people on your block, I know everybody on that block still. Wow. Those people didn't all lose their houses during the recession. So some of them still live there, the Alexanders, the Whitneys. Yeah, the Walkers, those are all people's parents. That's our like grandparents now. Many of them are still on that block. So Ward and Tireman, it was a great block all the way down to Joy Road. And the kids were on the block. The block was noisy. I played baseball on the street. I was a tomboy. I had brothers. And so we had the hoop in our backyard. That's why I played basketball, learned how to play basketball from my brothers playing out with all the guys on the block. So, yeah, a lot of kids, mostly black kids. And then we had Dearborn across the street. So, and that was a part of our neighborhood, too. And I'm actually writing a young adult novel in verse called Our House in the Middle of the Street, and it's about a relationship with a black girl and a sister from Lebanon, little girls, and their relationship, which I think is really deep considering what's happening in the world right now. So
okay, and then let me say this in Black culture, because I was one of those kids that had a hoop in the backyard too. Like, it's going to create community.
That's right.
Also, for people that really like basketball, trust me.
Yeah.
The rules in that person's backyard seem to always go in favor of that person. So
that's just what it is. Who got the who, right? Listen, also because I learned how to play basketball in that kind of backyard, when I went to St. Alphonsus, I didn't think, when I got to Cody, I didn't think I could play basketball because none of the white coaches would put me on the team. So I showed up and said, because how I come down the court, I come down the kind of.
Yeah, like you coming down, like crossing people over.
Listen, because I'm like my cousin, my play cousin Lynn, since our 7th grade, she played for Ladywood High School, and these white girls play so robotically. They play very like, they play like they're getting ready for college ball. I would play street ball. Yep. So I came down and I was just like, I'm doing like, Allen Iverson kind of, I'm trying to be sweet with it. And that coach was looking at me like, so I was like, I hate cheerleaders, right? And so I was like, I had to be a cheerleader. I just wanted to be in the gym. So I just became a cheerleader so I could be in the gym. And then I got to St. Suzanne's. I played softball for 2 years. I kind of gave up on the idea of basketball. And I went to Cody my freshman year, and I was like, you know what? Let me just try out for the team and see what happens. I made varsity my freshman year. And I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm on the varsity team? How'd that happen?
I already like how, Jessica moving us through the interview already. So, Cody. Like my alma mater in Northwestern. First off, a huge, I don't think people know how big Cody is. And
Cody's huge.
Stuff that's inside, Cody has like a printing press. It was
swimming pool. We had everything. A black box theater. I don't know what they got now, but they had a lot then.
And definitely Cody's relationship to Rouge. What was Cody like coming up when you were there?
I loved it. I love Cody so much. It changed my life. So I had been at predominantly white Catholic schools from 1st through 8th grade. I went to St. Alphonsus. But then my mother left my dad, so then she's a single mom with 2 daughters, and we went to St. Suzanne's, and then she couldn't afford private school anymore. So Cody was a culture shock. I mean, I walked in there like I do now. Like I was like, I'm the same person, really. Very artistic, very awkward black girl. Betty Boop. I would wear like stirrups or mismatched socks. Them girls in there, and they know who I'm talking about. But they my friends, right? To this day, some of them sisters, a lot of them on my Facebook. They was wearing Levi's and silk shirts with belts. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, why are they dressed like that? Like, they had Coach purses. I didn't know. I had no Coach purse. I was like, they got Coach purses? I wasn't into designer things like that. I was different, and I didn't wear my hair. I was a tomboy. Like, literally didn't really think I was pretty. I wasn't definitely like the pretty girl in the school. I had my hair pulled back in a ponytail a lot. I played 4 varsity sports. I was in a gym, and I think I got I did my hair for the prom. Not that I never combed my hair, but it just was not the priority. I just wasn't. I was scrappy, and smart.
So scrappy, smart.
Yeah.
The teachers and classes, what were you connecting with there? Because also just this relationship, and it's been coming up often, like parochial schools, the Detroit parochial or Catholic schools that existed here definitely had a different spin up through, I think, the 60s, like late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the 90s, a little bit of the 2000s before a lot of things changed after charter schools. So they're Catholic, so imagine a Catholic school inside of a community where all the white people left. So it's still it's like parochial schools with like
Jesu.
It's
Jesu.
like a black twist to the whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't experience that. My school was definitely white. St. Alphonsus was white and Polish.
Okay, so white and Polish. So
very Polish, yes.
To shifting over to Cody. I assume the cultural shock was like, what?
I was scared, honestly. My uncle, Mr. Taylor, was my uncle there, and he kind of helped me. But I think I probably cried the first week, and I was terrified. And it was such a big school. But I found my footing, and sports helped me, and the Black Box Theater and Susan's Story changed my life.
Susan's Story, what's that?
Yeah, she's my drama teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, so drama, the Black Box Theater, which my dream, I'm sending my son off to college this year, as you know, and after that happens, I just got to get over to Cody, because I really want to spend money and find resources to rebuild the Black Box Theater at Cody High School. And there's other schools that have them, like DSA and CAS. But Cody, that Black Box Theater saved my life. And she brought Ntozake Shange she did it for Color Girls. And I was like, what is this? And I've been writing poetry. And my English teachers were good, though. I had good, Beverly Rhodey was my English teacher. So I was an honor student. I was good at English, good at Shakespeare, and a natural poet. But I didn't know about Black women poets. I wasn't being taught them, right? And so when she brought Ntozake Shange's work into the Black Box Theater, and we did other stuff. We did Grease, I did To Kill a Mockingbird, so I was an actor in the theater. And Susan Story was not nice to me. She was hard on me. She noticed too. It's like I didn't know if I liked her, but she bust my ass, man. And to this, like, she came to my play. She's still in my life. She came to my play, Salt City, when it was there. I love Susan Story. And she nurtured Nikki Gilbert from Brownstone. And a lot of us that came out, one of the brothers sings for the Temptations, Jesse, and Dwayne Barnes, the actor in L.A. So a lot of us, we had a troupe called Les Troupes des Arts, and we had one of the baddest drama troupes in the city of Detroit.
Okay,
so, yeah.
So
that's how I got my start.
Were you okay? So just even getting on stage and also playing sports, stage fright. Because you've been on so many stages.
Yes.
How did you approach that at a young age? Because the fear of public speaking and being in front of people is still one of the, as they say, like I think they say that's like the biggest fear for most people.
Wow, yeah. Sports helped me with that. Because I was great. I love basketball. The confidence that I built playing sports is everything. If I had a daughter, that's what she'd be doing. I don't care if I put King in every sport, not because I wanted him to play sports for a living or go to college to be a basketball player, but because team building and they have that confidence, like to get off, the bench and run out there and get that ball in your hand. I was nervous. I used to come up because I played point, and I was a point guard and I was a shooting guard. So you're running plays and. You know what I mean? You got to make the right decisions. I mean, being up at bat as a softball player, I played second base and shortstop. That built my confidence more than anything. Sports really played a huge role in like me becoming like who I was gonna be. But my family plays baseball though, as basketball. They're all athletes, and so I don't know what happened to my sister. She didn't get the athlete bug, and but the rest of us played.
All right, so in this stage, you mentioned Grease, you mentioned some other pieces, like. Did you, what was that last final project? Because usually that's where, like, your senior year, were you, like, the lead? Did you work? Like
West Side Story. We did West Side Story. I think that was the last big play that we did. No, I played West Side Story. I was, like, one of the girls, one of the Puerto Ricans. I wasn't the lead. I wasn't leading any of those pieces. I think the only time I did lead, I did for To Kill a Mockingbird. That was a 3/4 round, so I was the lead. I played the woman that was accusing the Black man of raping her. So I played like this racist white woman with my hair pulled back, and so that was my own like solo performance. But I still didn't want to be an actor necessarily. It was Ntozake Shange's work for Color Girls that I wasn't in at all, that I just watched. And I was like, who is this? And that took me to the library on Joy Road because my school library didn't have those books that I needed. So I found Audre Lorde. I found Dudley Randall, that Bible called Black Poets that he edited, all those Detroit poets out of Broadside Press, Naomi Long Madgett, Larry Neal, Amiri Baraka, Hakeem Adabuti. That's why I found all those people. I was like, who are these people? Okay, I write poems like this. But I didn't know poems like that even existed.
So your arc in writing poetry, it started before this. And what were you like? What inspired you to write? Was it just one of those things where it was like, okay, I like, hey, you can win the NAACP prize. And
never that.
Sign up for this, that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was it that kind of led you into it?
I was a really dreamy little girl. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian because I liked animals, but I was writing when I was really young, probably like 9 or 10. Same way King started writing very young, and why I recognized King's writing early because I'm a poet mom, so I saw it. But I was reading V.C. Andrews' books, and I was obsessed with those books, and I was reading a lot of nonfiction. So my mother had books in her house, in our house, and I used to say she ate books. So my mother was an avid reader. So I was reading very early and reading fast. I could read really fast. And so I was eating books. I was reading like the memoir of Janis Joplin, and news anchors. And my mother had all these biographies. She didn't have any it was like no nonfiction. It was biography and memoir and poetry. So she gave me Alice Walker when I was young. She gave me Maya Angelou. She gave me Lorraine Hansberry to be young, gifted, and black. So my mother knew something, and she knew I could read really well, and I knew she didn't know if I would be a poet. but I thought I'd be a journalist. So when I was in like, what grade was I? It was like 7th grade. And we were living in an apartment complex kind of between, she had left my daddy and we were figuring out where we were going to live. So we're at this apartment complex. And I created a newspaper inside the apartment complex. And I was cutting and pasting and I was interviewing the people, the neighbors. So I was a curious child, which is something that I wish I saw more of. When I see a curious child, when I go into a school now as an adult and I see curious kids, I get so excited because so many of them are just tuned out. And now it's worse because of the iPhones and our addictions, right? The adults, we're all addicted to these digital devices, taking us somewhere else, right? But nothing going on really with our own imagination. So my imagination was crazy. But poetry was just something that I wrote about boys and love, suicide, death. I was obsessed with death and dark things, and just until I found politics. So then I started finding things to write about that had meaning, and yeah.
And this is all like along that growth, and now you're hit with something like, oh, they're writing what I'm writing.
They're writing,
and
yeah.
it like
they're writing for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I was like, they're actually writing for me. Like that, I felt like they had been kept from me. I was like, wait a minute, this woman named Jane Cortez and this woman named Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez. What's this about? I started reading about the Black Arts Movement. I was like, I know that's who I am. I knew I was connected to these people. I had never was told that I was connected to them or that I could be, but I was like, I'm connected somehow to these people. And then I became very, very political in college. And so that was, yeah.
And let me say this for everybody watching this that's younger, like my Christiane Malone interview a couple of weeks back where we talked about her love for encyclopedias and stuff. Okay, you couldn't Google everything back in the day.
No.
So I know y'all are thinking like, why couldn't you just Google this stuff?
Because
you had to seek it out, usually in a library with the Dewey Decimal System.
Dewey Decimal.
And it's not like a Google search where it's like, oh, that was wrong. You needed to already kind of know a little bit of what to ask for, but this is where librarians play such a great role in community and stewarding, especially young people, because the librarian will be like, oh, I know what you're looking for.
Yes.
And they would help you guide what that is. And unlike a Google search where it's like, oh, it pops up, I don't like that. You get a certain amount of books.
And that's it.
Lay it down, and then you have to return some of those books to get some more.
I used to be laid on the floor in the library, just laid out on the floor, like reading. I was just like, it completely just blew my mind. But Ntezaki's work was so gangster. I was like, this is gangsters? Talking about gangster rap in the 80s? I was like, ain't nothing more gangster than Ntezaki Shange. These rappers need to read books, man. Y'all need to check these poets. And they were really keeping the culture alive because I was connected to hip-hop, too. You know, I was like, loved Run DMC. It was one of my favorite groups. I loved Rakim. I loved... you know, there's a lot of people that early, but Queen Latifah and MC Lyte, you know, I was listening to all that. That's before, like, rap wasn't on the radio. We still had to find that, too.
Yeah, that was another thing. You definitely had to search out and seek.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the Rap Blast being something which actually
blast.
somebody else from your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Boss.
Oh, man, come on. I looked up to her, too. I thought she was amazing. I was younger, you know, so I was like, oh, she was so confident and rowdy and street and edgy. And I was like, who you calling? You know, anyway.
Boss, like, for people that...
You gotta let it be.
It was like
you
a
gotta,
moment in time.
you gotta.
I was a kid, but it was like, whoa. It was like, okay, you know, the hardest dudes, like, I don't listen to no women, but I got Boss.
Exactly. That's deep. Yeah, no, she was, that's unfortunate that she's not with us anymore. That's Detroit, man. I feel like we lose people. I've been losing people since I was about 13 or 14. That's when I started going to Cody, I started losing people. You know, people got shot. You know, one of my friends got shot on the way to school. You know, just something crazy when I was like 14 years old. And I was like, what?
And this is like possibly in the writings making sense of it. After Cody.
After
Cody, where are you at in your
Michigan State.
State.
I went to Michigan State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like State?
Yeah, I took. I mean, I saw it was organized at school, so I mean, I became an activist. College was an interesting experience. It grew me politically. I realized, especially going to what they call PWIs, which means that white people go there, a whole bunch.
White institution.
Yes, a PWI. I went to a PWI, and I went on Howard's campus as a writer for the first time to perform, and I cried when I went to Howard because I was like, this is what an HBCU feel like. Damn. You know, I missed that opportunity. And so, but, you know, I didn't have good counselors. Counselors just tell you to go where you get in. I was like a 3.5 student, too. I was a good student. I could have gone somewhere else. But I was really close to my daddy. And Michigan State was far enough. So I went to East Lansing. My daddy packed up his Cadillac, literally, and dropped me off at Michigan State when I was 17. And I was there for a year, but I got really... I got a really quick course in racism at Michigan State University. I became very active. So I was one of the organizers that helped. So in your tuition, you pay for the newspaper. The student newspaper basically acted like black kids did not exist on campus. There was nothing about us ever in the state news. So we organized, and all the black students went and got their $2 back. Because you could ask for it back. They take the $2, big deal. It's just $2, but $2 times 50,000 students is some money. And so we went and got our $2 back. We signed a piece of paper, and they had to give us a refund. And we took the money and we created a newspaper called Focal Point. We created a black newspaper.
How many issues? And let me say this: this is
no idea. We had it. It went on for some time after I left. They still had Focal Point.
It's kept going after.
Yeah. It was a black newspaper that was created my freshman year. So.
Which is, let me put it like this: it also shows the boldness of it.
Yes,
we've had in Detroit as different interviews before. For everybody in publishing, starting a publishing company in that style probably is,
listen,
it's a lot of learned lessons that way.
Absolutely, but it was great. We got a newspaper. I wrote for the paper. I was like, fuck the state news. You know what I mean? They taking our money, and it's just $2. And so we organized all these black students to go get. That had never happened. Where the people were like, I would like my $2 back that you take for the state news.
Wow.
And then Farrakhan. This is nice.
I was just about to ask that because I was watching the YouTube. I was watching a YouTube clip of when Farrakhan speaking at Michigan State, specifically saying, in Farrakhan's voice, they don't want me up here. No, and I was like, damn, this was at state.
Listen, we fought for him. So it was 12 Jewish students and a rabbi. Almost shut it down. I was like, so 12 Jewish students and one rabbi. In comparison to all these black students who are paying tuition who want to hear this man speak. And so how we won is I started talking to my white student friends who were in my dorm room at Armstrong Hart Brody Complex, and I was like, listen, because I didn't know if I wanted to hear him speak. I wasn't like a Farrakhan follower. I wasn't in the Nation of Islam. But I was like, let's hear for ourselves if we like him. Let's not take two of his sentences, which the media always does, and take it out of context. Let's listen. Let's go together. So I brought white students to see Minister Farrakhan out of my dorm. We all went together, and then we had a conversation afterwards. And I didn't agree with everything, but he ended up coming because we fought. Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is interesting because, like I say, I believe this tape exists. It may be after, but he's talking specifically about going to Michigan State when the fight for it.
Yes.
And for people that
it was 1990.
The arc of Minister Farrakhan in his speeches, and a lot are cataloged online. Right now, he's not on YouTube per se, but some of his works are there, like that speech and others. But around that arc in maybe even like the late 80s, Farrakhan is on Donahue often.
Yes.
Just debating people.
All the time.
About,
I think he was young, man.
Donahue is, for people that don't know who Donahue was, Donahue was the mentor for Oprah. But just a news guy that would have these provocative topics.
He had Alice Walker. I remember seeing when Alice Walker came on Donahue. It was crazy. I'd never forget it.
It was talk shows before talk shows are what they are now.
Yeah.
And it would be like a lot of back and forth. White people would stand. I just don't understand why you hate us.
Yeah. It was great.
Like, brother, I don't hate you.
So good. And smiling, brother, I don't hate you. So fair, God.
You're not in a position to say if I hate you.
I know, that's exactly.
So in this arc, the student movement, Michigan State and other places, but Michigan State knowing that you all were leading that.
Yes.
So now you're going to see, this is like provocative now. Think about this. And then sitting with some white students post Farrakhan speech.
Yes.
What is the discussion like after that?
Afterwards, we talked about what we agreed and disagreed with. They were surprised that they didn't find him as horrible as they thought they would. They said, oh, okay, we understand more. We understood him more. There were some things that he said that I was like, okay, I don't agree with this. I didn't agree with everything that came out of the minister's mouth, but they understood it in context. And we went on, and we stayed friends. And he came, and no one got hurt. You know what I mean? It was like, it was positive, and I think we just talked about what we agreed with and what we didn't agree with, and then we talked about. I mean, I'm talking about one of my suite mates that next door, my girlfriend Renee. Her suite mate was from the Thumb. She had never seen black people. She became one of our good friends because we had to tell her. She asked us questions like, "Are you scared in Detroit?" And we like, "Nah, girl, we ain't scared." Like Renee from King High School. She was loud and black and crazy, and we loved Renee. Still do. She's a good friend to this day. And shout out to Renee Cash. I love you. And yeah, and so she got a lesson. She learned so much being around us. And this is just one girl in particular. I forgot her name. And we ended up visiting her family up in the Thumb. You know what I mean? Literally had never seen no black people before. And yeah, ever in her life.
And that's just so.
That's Michigan. That's Michigan too. Yeah. Not Detroit, but it's very Michigan.
So after state.
Yeah, state. Yeah, I came home. My mother couldn't afford for me to stay there. So I ended up, I got really connected to hip hop. That's why, I was Maurice Malone, and that whole time period, Hassan Mausi and Gafani, and they were dancing, and I was writing poetry, and I was definitely got more connected to the Detroit hip hop scene. That's why I was friends with Dilla, with John Doe, and Proof, and that's when I was like 18, 19 years old.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because we also share in one of the last times I saw you, and rest in peace to Amp, another person connected to hip hop. Another one of my big homies.
Yeah, I didn't know him then.
Was P.
Yeah, Proof.
Proof.
Deshaun.
So you call it's like I can't even call him Deshaun, but and his role and what that was like. Like I try to always speak to it's hard to even
encapsulate it all.
Of somebody that was so connected to like when I was explaining it when me and Sterling did the history of Detroit hip hop, like our destinations thing. It's like, so imagine a person being in a group like Public Enemy.
Yes.
And being in a group like 2 Live Crew.
Right.
And being in a group like...
He could be in both those crews.
and being in a group
I miss him so much.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Ultramatic MC. Like, he was...
Oh, that for sure, too.
So...
eclectic and hood. And wow. And beautiful and funny and talented. And I miss him so much. Like, it's just, when you think about it, you're like, why is he not here? You know what I mean? Like, I wish he was still with us. Because I knew, I was really close to Proof. I mean, closer to him than probably anybody else on the scene. I don't know who I would be closer to than him. Like, he was definitely one of the ones. And Hassan, who's also gone. Hassan Mausi.
Because I remember I found this... I found it a couple years back, and I sent the picture to you of, it was in the Michigan Citizen Archives of you and like all of the OG poets.
Oh, wow.
And out of nowhere, you was like, Proof gave me a ride there that day. And
it's
for real?
Probably. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so I came back home, so I'm like, mind you, I'm like 18, 19 years old. I ended up going like Wayne County Community. I was still trying to stay in college. Came back to my mom's house. Like, trying to figure that I ended up, I couldn't do that for long. So I got a place down. I lived on Marston. Then I ended up going to Wayne State. I went from Wayne County Community to Wayne State. So definitely at that time, by the time I got to Wayne State, I was immersed in the hip-hop scene there. A hip-hop shop. I had gotten a job at, I was a journalist. I had a show called Just Kicking It. So I interviewed everybody. Maurice Malone. Terry Dyer, who's no longer with us. I interviewed The Coup, so I interviewed Boots Riley. So I met Boots when I was mad young. So me and Boots Riley have known each other forever. I wasn't even a poet. I was just writing poems, but I wasn't a full-time artist. I was a baby. And hanging out with JD and hanging out with, all of us who were doing like St. Andrews Hall and The Shelter. And I just was doing that 50/50 Broadway. But I wrote for this magazine, what was it called? Vibes or whatever. I forgot the Caribbean brother had a spot next to this hip hop shop, like the Soul Caribbean food. I forgot the name of it, but he had a little magazine, and I'd like interview Method Man and Redman when they came in town and hung out with them. And so I was, and then Proof was hosting the hip hop shop open mic, and I was running the hip hop shop. Me and Yamini, this beautiful Indian sister that used to work there too. And so Maurice Malone was a good friend, of course. And so, but Maurice taught me how to do QuickBooks, how to write checks. I was doing that for him. I was running, so this is how young I am not. I used to write, so I was Maurice's publicist because I knew how to write. And we would cut out the pictures of Kalfani and put them when he was Theo then. And so we put the pictures of Kafani with that jeans like Jesus, like picture with Kafani's like screaming, and we would put it on a piece of paper, and we would do Xerox copies of I would write the press release, and that's how we would put the picture on the press release.
Wow.
Lord have mercy. And so I would get him like articles in Detroit News and the Michigan Chronicle.
Everything is like Mr. Miyagi, like the newspaper.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a kid. Like your newspaper, the neighborhood nursepaper work.
Yeah.
At Michigan State.
Yeah.
And to being the publicist from Maurice Malone.
Yeah. And then, eventually, my first jobs, my jobs before, besides waiting tables, was because I was a waitress at some point. I don't know how I did a lot of stuff before 21. I was working for the Michigan Chronicle as a writer, and definitely writing the news for Channel 50 for like a couple years. So I was at Wayne State, and I was working for Channel 50. I was writing the newscast for Amir Makeup and Harry Harrison.
Okay.
So
all right, and writing.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, just because as a creative, me and my sister often, because I think my sister's one of those creatives that goes the one path where it's like, yo, I want to do my own thing. I'm one that's like, I like doing my own thing, but I also like working with clients and stuff.
Yeah.
How do you manage, like, when you're writing in the voice of someone else or for something else that's not the creative spirits of Jessica Care Moore?
Yeah, it's deep. I mean, my life has changed so much since those moments. So, I've been full-time poet damn near 30 years now, and being able to make choices to, like, this is my recent book, We Want Our Bodies Back. I decided to write this book. No one told me to write it. I write what I want to write. And that's what I loved about the poetry space, is that I've owned that space. I don't belong. Until We Want Our Bodies Back, More Black Press was my publishing house. So I became a book publisher, right? And when I was 22 in Brooklyn, and published Saul Williams' first book. So I've been a journalist and a writer and a publisher my entire life. Like it's all connected to my path. I do corporate things now. I was never interested in corporate work. The reason why the corporate thing became interesting is because I came back to Detroit. Now, I don't think I would have been doing this had I stayed in New York or stayed in Atlanta. But because I can write about this city, and because I'm so connected I'm heart heavy about Detroit, then I can do corporate things with corporations that live here, right? That want to be connected to people in Detroit. So writing Move Here, Move the World was easy. I didn't even know what it was for. When Stephen McGee, my dear friend, asked me to write, can you write something, Move Here, Move the World, something around that theme of Move Here, Move the World for Detroit, blah, 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 poem. I was like, yeah, give me a minute. And I wrote it and came to the studio, knocked it out. I didn't even know it was for the Amazon pitch, because Dan Gilbert was trying to get Amazon to come to Detroit. That wouldn't have been exciting to me. So because Stephen was my friend,
The relationship.
yeah, it's my boy. So I was like, yeah, I got you. I'll write it. And he had a little budget, and then I found out who was paying for it, and then so the budget changed. My invoice got had some zeros to the thing. But I've done a lot of stuff. I've written for like Skillman Foundation. I mean, it's, the nonprofits, and I've done a lot of voiceover stuff. So in Detroit. And then the pandemic happened, and that changed everything too. Because as a poet, I'm a gig worker, so I make a living performing and traveling. And so, if I'm not in front of people when I heard the word gig worker, I called all my artist friends. I said, "Y'all, that's us. By the way, that's us. We're gig workers. Go get your check." And yeah, so.
So in this same space, you're there, and I know you're traveling. What made the decision to Detroit, New York, Atlanta?
Oh,
when
God.
did you make that? When did you hop that fence?
Okay, so I left Detroit. My daddy died in 94. So like the last article I remember writing for Michigan Chronicle was around the same week of my father's funeral. Like that had this byline in Michigan Chronicle. And that's why I wrote my first poem and read it in front of everybody. It was January of 94. Wow. And I'd been at Wayne State. I had just got done, because I took over Wayne State when I was there too with the Black Student Union. That's all I did in school was take over stuff. I was the co-president. We had co-presidents. Me and my best friends, Ken Jones, were co-presidents of the Black Student Union. And I was on the student executive board of the NAACP. So Joanne Watson was a mentor. Reverend Anthony was a mentor. And I was causing havoc down at Wayne State. And so, because we're in the middle of Detroit, and they didn't have a Martin Luther King holiday. So in January 1994, 93, we started the boycott of the Student Center building, took over Adam Manny's office, and by January of 94, we had the first King holiday celebration there.
And I hate to do the break-in like I always do with Detroit is different. Yeah. The relationship between, like I say this because my most recent interview was like, no, I'm working with Wayne State. Look, the relationship Wayne State and black people have is a very rocky relationship. But the reality is the relationship with any institution in America and black people is a rocky relationship. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like we're shining a light on it, but it's just been so many iterations when we even go back.
Well, we make those places great. Like when we leave those places, they're better. Because we were there, we made it better. We helped Adam Manny be a better human. Because why are you in the middle of a university sitting in the middle of Detroit, a black city, was blacker then than it is now, and you ain't closing classes on the King holiday, and so we took over the Student Center building and we boycotted all the restaurants. We weren't eating. We had people bringing us food. It was beautiful. And like 300 of us lined up in front of Adam Manny's office, and I'll never forget it. And he was shaking, and he signed the paper that we could, because they were saying it's going to be we don't have time. People need a year. And I said, no. We said, no, not right now. And the thing is, the reason why we won is like we don't want to shut down the school on the King holiday. We want kids to come to school, but we want to have a celebration for the King, for Martin Luther King. So when they actually decided to close classes legally, I don't know, but because we pushed for it, because we were like, no, we don't want you to kids because the black students that go to the program, you're going to give a test, and then you're going to give them a 0 on the test because they weren't there because you're a racist, and we know what you're going to do. And so we like, no classes, no students have to go to class, and they have to come to this program. And we did this big thing. So that was 94. I had just buried my daddy. I had a lot of energy. So I put it all towards just kind of making some change at Wayne State.
So, and that's not soon after the fight in the 80s of the lock-in with Daryl Dawsey.
I learned from Daryl Dawsey and Earl Henderson, Dr. Earl Henderson. I was at Michigan State when they did that.
Ken Cockrell Jr., his wife, Mrs. Cockrell, so many others, Mama Shoshana, Aisha Shule were bringing the
fighting for African studies. Come
theater
on.
down there. Like, so that's that fight. And then also Chokwe Lumumba and Jeff Edison for the law school of what they took on in that fight.
Right.
And so many of the other people saying, okay, the testing of Wayne State. Like, these are the iterations of these fights. Like, when people say, like, well, racism is over. It's like, no, some of it's direct. And also the culture of what Wayne State was then.
Why?
Is so different even than what it is now.
Oh, for sure. A lot of Muslim students at Wayne State. Absolutely. I was like, shout out to that. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I was a lot of hijabs on campus. I was like, hey, I see y'all. Yes, let's go. And we had a lot of Muslim students. Muslim Student Association there was big and was connected to our movement with black students, of course. And a lot of my black friends, African-American friends, were definitely Sunni Muslims. And we were part of that community, and they were part of the boycott as well.
And also, when we talk about that, also the culture of the campus itself, because that's closer to like what they'll say, like Cass Corridor days, not Midtown days.
Corridor. It was the Cass Corridor days. Absolutely.
So.
It was lovely. We had the Cass Co-op and what was it? Cosmos? I don't know. What was the name?
Roscoe's, arcade. You had.
It was a great restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but it was And when my friend Yale Miller was alive, shout out to Yale and Joma Miller. He was an activist in the city that was killed here. Oh, some of the best people I know I've lost here. So a lot of my heartbreaks are here in Detroit, you know.
And one of those heavy ones, your father.
My daddy was the first.
To a connection to
leaving here. That left here after that, to be honest. Yeah, because I was like, I'm good on Detroit. Like that was the heartbreak, the biggest heartbreak for me. It still is the biggest heartbreak of my life, for sure. Is my daddy.
Where do you go?
Brooklyn, yeah. 1995. I'm like.
So you go from one heartbeat of like underground hip hop and culture to like the mix of
let's go
underground.
I met. It's funny because JD and I saw him a few times in New York City, and Dan Charnas writes about that, me seeing him in New York City in his book Dilla Time. And I remember it was him and Proof. They were wild. They were like, we saw each other like on 42nd Street at Times Square. They would like do an MTV or something, an interview, and I don't know what I was doing. I saw him another time at the studio session. He happened to be there. Like there was a big black mink coat swallowing him up. And he was so little, and I was like, "Look at you, Detroit!" But he became friends with all my friends. Like we got connected to the same people from Yasin, to Mos Def, then Talib, Erykah Badu, the same folks, man. Q-Tip, I just, those Soulquarians, some of them folks were people in heart were similar to me. But I went to 95. It was Jossess. I don't know if you know Jossess, but Jossess was in a group called Dopadelic out of Detroit. Paul Rosenberg, who's Paul, we call him Paul Bunyan. I went to Michigan State with him. My first lawyer now runs Shady Records for Eminem, so he's like his lawyer and runs the company. And I got to see him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a few years ago when M was getting inducted, and so I get there, and yeah, I'm 95. I'm completely green, though. But Josh says from Dope Duck, like, I saw him, and he's like, Jess, you got to go to this bookstore, in Kuru Books. I took you to the bookstore, I meet my brother Talib, and that's how I met Talib. He was working at Kuru Books, and he was just working at the Kuru Books. He was the MC. He was an aspiring rapper, but he wasn't famous. But I met him, Dante, and Stick, and Matulu from Dead Prez. Like, we're all on the scene together. Common was famous, but not super famous, not Hollywood famous. Like, he's like he's an action figure now and shit. He's such a heartthrob. But he was like he had I knew him from Chicago. I knew his band. I think Black Girl Named Becky. I think that was it. And we were in that video together in front of Flatbush. So I became part of the 90s hip hop community in Detroit quickly, and the poets like Saul Williams,
and already had a beat for knowing hip hop in the culture. And let's talk a little bit about that, because especially there, and this is the home of Piper Carter too.
Yes,
and Piper always says like, the misogyny in hip hop and where women are at, and it's a lot of bullshit in hip hop.
Of course, when it
comes to women.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of bullshit just in hip hop
in general, in the world when it comes to women, not just hip hop. Yeah,
you kind of. Even from the hip hop shop days, what would you say, like in navigating in that space, you were, I don't even want to use the term safer, but you had more comfort than others? And what advice would you give to a woman that's like, I want to be an MC, but I also don't want the guy to be like, we can work on some tracks, come through at 2. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you don't go at 2. That's note to self. Like, you don't go at 2. You have to be, I'm blessed. I have 5. I just found another brother. I grew up with 2 of the brothers in my house. 5 brothers that I've known about my whole life. Just found a 6th brother from my daddy. My daddy was busy, had another baby in Canada. Shout out to my brother Jamie. He came and spent Kwanzaa with us. It was amazing. Got to meet some of his other siblings for the first time. Never knew his daddy, so he's like getting to know his father through knowing us, which is real beautiful. And he's got beautiful children and beautiful lady. And so I grew up with, so men don't scare me, and I was blessed to be protected by my brothers and my daddy, whereas that's not every woman's story, and I'm clear about that, and I'm clear about that. Like, it's not everyone's story, and not that I haven't had some mishaps, but my confidence around men, and then playing sports, you know what I mean? I was around a lot of dudes. I mean, I would literally go do pickup games at Rouge Park.
Because sometimes sometimes it's that pressure too. Not like saying the worst thing can happen, but you just don't see. Because let me tell you this straight up. Most hip hop nights, it will be like I've just kind of went in, even with my rap journey, of like, okay, don't approach her, because chances are that's like somebody's girlfriend. More than like, so you can go to certain hip hop nights and see certain rappers, and I love this rapper, and it will be probably a crowd of like maybe 200 people, and of those 200, it may be 40 women. Possibly. And I'm talking about the bartender, the person at the dough, and that's a lot. So it would be easy, like a shelter night. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody
I knew so many of the people, though. I think I felt safe because I was a part. It was community.
You were a part of that community.
In Detroit, it was community. I knew Idris, Hassan. Those are my feet. They were my people. And I was an artist. I became a poet, and they knew I was a poet. I was a poet cutting through microphones, cutting through very male-dominated spaces, even the hip-hop shop space, when I would grab a mic and do a poem. And so I think that was the difference. A lot of time, the artist kept me safer.
And did it ever hit you like, damn, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure you invited
New York.
Your own girls, and they probably came and was like, I don't know.
Well, these guys were nerds. I mean, just to be clear, like the Rhythm Kitchen vibe wasn't like, it wasn't the dangerous spot in Detroit. We were like fake backpackers and who were like trying to like meditate. I remember by 10, like we would spend nights out up, hanging out and be like trying to meditate with our eyes open. We were. we're kind of corny, you know, like we're like nerds.
By 10,
Rest in peace by 10. Oh my God, so many people that we've lost. So yeah, that was my good friend too. So
I agree, but it's still just one of those things where
anything can happen. It's Detroit. Yeah, but nobody. I had guy friends. Let me say that. So I felt protected because I was cool with men. If somebody walked up on me, I would be felt a little protected. And maybe I wasn't all the time though. You're not always in places safe where you think you are. I have been in other dangerous places. It wasn't in the hip hop scene. It was Detroit. I've been around drug dealers, and when I was around like drug dealers and guys with guns and more street oriented folks. I had a crew that I hung out with that didn't go to the hip hop shop. So didn't go to the Rhythm Kitchen. Different types of dudes. They were like, what's that over there? It wasn't their vibe. They were more like, they go to a house party or to the club. Like me and Charlotte, my girlfriend, we would go to the Rhythm Kitchen. We would have a change of clothes in our car, change into our little stanky, little slutty clothes, and then go to the regular party.
So you were at both. So
yes, I went to both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was on the east side at clubs, all kinds of clubs.
So you would still go to a cabaret.
Listen, I danced at
open mic.
I done been to a 2 Live Crew concert. Like horrible things that I did in my youth. And I liked brothers from the east side. Had Monte Carlos and money, and I was young and dumb too at some point. I was never dumb, but I was definitely like. I definitely dated guys that and been in places that my life was probably in danger, but it was never in those environments. So not the hip hop scene, no.
So into the New York scene.
Oh, it's different
with that Detroit flavor.
Yeah.
You also are there for the
poetry.
I was gonna say that
more than anything. Of
poets taking a lot of the rap stages.
Let's go. Yeah, man. And
what was that
and
like?
Black poets were just destroying things. It's when Saul Williams was on the open mic with me, you know. Five Chameleons, Mums the Schemer, Brad Warren, my first husband, Sharif Simmons, and we were pushing the envelope. We were pushing poetry with music. We were babies but this is when we had, Sonia Sanchez is with us, but we had Sonia and Amiri Baraka and these Black Arts Movement writers and Haki. We would be doing readings with them. And it was like Tony Medina. It would be the most magical thing. We're in our 20s and we're like, these guys are people, these are men and women, poets from the Black Arts Movement that we gushed over.
Yeah.
We were fans of these poets. We still are, but couldn't believe that we were in the and we were looking for them.
Yeah.
We cared what they thought. A different time period. We cared what our elders thought. The last poets, they took me on the road before I did the Apollo. That's my story. When I went to New York, it was Abiodun Oyewole and Umar Ben Hassan and Babatunde, the last poets, these historical figures who had come to Detroit. Right, and at that point when they came, I was performing. I think that was still 94. I was still in Detroit. My father had died, figuring it out, and I opened for the last poets at Pour Me Cafe, which is where I got my start here. Shout out to Tree. And it's what is it called now? TV Lounge. It's been 3:30 and it's TV Lounge now. So when it was Pour Me Cafe and Toya Hankins and all the whole crew, shout out to Zaina, who put me on my first poetry gigs from Spectacles. They saw my light. They saw that I was talented, and there was a lot of men on the poetry scene here. So I'm saying in New York City, but that's what happened when I went to New York City. I called Abiodun because they were I opened for them. They're like, you ever in New York, call me, and that's what I did. I called them.
You really took the as they say, the Hollywood call. You actually did it.
I called them
sometimes people
I'm here.
Don't do it.
I'm on 125th Street. What up, though?
You be thinking I don't want to seem like I'm, and you was like, nah,
man,
yo, what up?
I'm here. And my first gig in New York City, Biggie was there.
Wow.
Check that out. So I got my first gig in New York. I wasn't living there yet. I was there to see my cousin Alexis graduate. And people have done stories. They know this story. But I was going to see my cousin from Detroit graduate from NYU. So I was there with her family, driving around on the double-decker bus like a corny tourist, right? Going up 125th Street. And I'm looking at Harlem. I was like, get me off this bus right now. Get me off this. So I got off the bus. They were in Sylvia's eating. Typical tourist stuff. Sylvia's is great black spot, right? Everybody knows Sylvia's. And there's a tent outside. Sony Music is having a talent contest. Sony Music. And so I walked up. I was like, so how can I get in this contest? I'm from Detroit. And they're like, what you do? I'm a poet. They're like, pay $20. So New York. I was like, $20? Fill out this little application. So I paid $20, fill out the application. Man, I tore that tent up. I was doing Black Girl Juice. I had a poem called White Girl Juice. They were like, okay. So where do you live? I said, Detroit. They're like, okay, we don't want you to be in the competition. We want you to come to this showcase we're doing. Mike Phillips was on that gig. Freaking Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips wasn't even famous yet. Me and Mike Phillips, the saxophone player, did that gig together. We want you to be a special guest. I was like, okay. Like, I was supposed to go home, like, the next day. I extended my stay, and they put me on the flyer. So I was on the flyer. I wasn't even living there yet. I'd been in New York for 2 days. And I was like, maybe I'm supposed to be here. And that was God, man, like, for real. Because I did that show. Biggie was there. Jacess was there. It was crazy. I did the poem. I met, like, afterwards, people went crazy. I was like, look at New York. Like, I honestly had never felt like that before. I was like, for a poem? Y'all going like that for a poem? I was like, man, I was 22. And I was up for a full-time news writer job at Channel 50.
Wow.
I was up for the job. I came home. I was working at Channel 50 at the time. I was up for the full-time news writer weekend associate producer gig. That's what they gave the black girl. It was always the black girl was the news writer and the associate producer on the weekend. I could have had the job. And I did the interview, and my news director said, if you didn't want it, why you interview? She could tell I didn't want it. I said, I think I'm going to go to New York. I think I'm going to New York. And I moved. And I packed in my Ford pickup truck, and I moved to Brooklyn. And, and my life changed really fast.
So from there,
Yeah.
so much of like seeing another scene blossom. Like you're putting seeds in the ground. This whole like most of your life, you're like putting seeds in grounds of seeing scenes blossom.
Yeah.
Culture come together. Community exists with young people community.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So young people community, it's a different type of energy and spirit.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes details like, oh man, people got to eat.
I don't even remember how I made money. I think so when I won the Apollo, because I won the Apollo, I'd been living in Brooklyn for 5 months. And yeah, that was crazy. And my life changed really fast in New York City. People knew who I was super fast.
Wow.
I mean, I was still learning the train. And then the GZA knew who I was.
Wow.
People in the Wu-Tang Clan knew who I was. KRS-One knew Nas. They knew me because I won the Apollo when Steve Harvey was hosting, and it came on at 1 a.m, and everybody was watching, and everyone was doing that show. So I got on the trains. It's a late night show. Everybody that worked on the trains, the conductors, they all knew me.
Wow.
It was blowing my mind. Waiters and waitresses. I walked in restaurants. They're like, you're the girl on the Apollo. You're the poet. I've been watching you for 5 weeks. I was like, what? Look at God. Look at my daddy go.
So let's
That's
talk
my daddy. My daddy did that.
Let's also talk about black culture. The Apollo Theater.
Yay.
Even though Detroit is different,
Harlem.
we got to shout out any black culture.
Right.
The Apollo Theater is like such a staple in black culture. What was that feel like doing in the Apollo Theater? Is that for the Apollo Talent Night? Like,
Yes.
I'm not saying like when people do shows at the Apollo, like I heard like certain rappers say like, yeah, you had to know you had to rock. And it's like, nah, it's different when you book to be at the Apollo versus
Amateur night.
Yeah,
amateur night, you
is
get
a
your
whole-
ass
it's
boued.
like, nobody booing you and you bought a ticket
when you're
to the
Nas.
show.
No,
Yeah,
you're the famous comedian. If you're Dave Chappelle or Mike Epps, you're not getting booed. at the
Amateur
Apollo.
night, it's almost like people come to amateur night like
To boo. The goal is to boo. Like, who we about to boo? You got to convince them not to boo. Like, that's
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
like-
thing.
It's like I paid money so that I could boo somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I still get chills in my body thinking about it. Like, it was 1995. Yeah, that happened. I was such a baby. It was December of 90. So when they taped it in October of 95. So I probably was, early. I remember it was like October 6th. I was still 22, going on 23. And then it came on in December, the last week of December and all of January of 1996. I told her, I said, I'm winning the Apollo. I didn't quite know what that meant. I won like a Sony Music thing. And then in the moment, it was just surreal because I kept winning. And then, it's black folks. So you're supposed to leave and a new audience supposed to come. But, it's black people. They didn't leave. They just moved their seats. And so they were staying. People were still out. Yeah. So I went out there that second time like, okay, I won. That was miraculous. I ain't gonna win again because it's the same people. They just heard that poem. And I got 7 more people who were singing and dancing and had a rapping pit bull that had been winning. Stupid. The rapping pit bull was winning. He had been on Dr. Dre and Ed. You gotta
Google that.
Dr. Dre and Ed Lover had the rapping pit bull on his show. So when I heard that Dr. Dre and Ed Lover had the pit bull, I called the Hot 97 like, you got the rapping. I beat the rapping pit bull. When am I coming on the show? So that's how I got on Dr. Dre and Ed Lover show on Hot 97. And so connected to hip hop really fast in New York City because of the Apollo, because the rappers were watching and the rappers were on that show. And so, yeah, that was a deep time for me. It was deep. Yeah.
All right. So also during this time, now you have some cachet in that poetry scene. So I'm pretty sure the other poets are kind of looking at you like, yo, you can help us kind of get put on. Like,
well, not even that. You know, the New York poets, they didn't ask to be put on, but what they did though is some of them went to the Apollo. Jasiri went and he won, and this other poet out of Ohio, the Boogeyman, came on, and when nobody got to 5 though, you know. But I won 5 weeks, which was no one had ever done that. So it's not just at a poets. No one ever had done that in amateur night, singing or dancing or anything. So after 5 wins, I never lost. They just sent me home. They're like, I was getting dressed literally in the backstage for my 6th. Paul Mooney was there when I won.
Hilarious.
He was there. Ernie Petticoli, I believe, was there when I won. Brandy was there. Brandy was like, I loved your poetry. I was like, thank you, Brandy. Okay. The Fugees were there as guests when I won. It was crazy. And so, yeah, it was a deep time because I could have become an egomaniac or something. So instead, here I go. I'm Detroit. I'm become an institution builder. So I say Saul Williams had his book, and Saul walked his manuscript over to the house and said, let's make you the Hakeem Matabuti of our generation. And I was like, I don't know about that, but I'll publish your book. You want me to publish your book? I'll publish your book. And so I published The 7th Octave, the early writings of Saul Williams. He's one of the most famous poets of our generation.
And all of this, like I say, young people growing energy. Because I'm guessing it's no like subsidized. You're not going to a bank to get a loan and all of that stuff.
I used my poetry money. I was making money as a poet. So I was working for the Daily Challenge when I did the Apollo. I was working as a journalist. That's what I knew to do, is to be a writer. And to write for a black newspaper, it just makes sense, right? And so I'm writing for the newspaper. I was working interning, doing a little job at the Bureau of Cultural Affairs, and figuring it out on lots of open mics at the Brooklyn Moon Cafe and New Eurekan Poets Cafe. In '96, I was on the New Eurekan Poetry Slam team with Saul Williams, Mum's a Schemer, rest in peace, and Bosia, a bunch of dudes, and I was the girl on the team. And I didn't like slam either. I was from Detroit. And the brother that worked there, God, his name escapes me. Oh, my God, I'm going to find it. And just told me to just do my poems the way I do my poems. It's like, don't think about the slam. Don't think about the competition. I was like, we don't do that in Detroit. That's white folk stuff. We don't compete with our poems. I was an activist. You know, I thought my poems were supposed to be like activism. It's not supposed to change the world. It's not supposed to like win a contest. It's just not how I came into it. And so when the slam was real weird. And but I was good, and I beat this other poet, this white poet that they really wanted to win. I forgot her name. They really wanted her to win, I could tell. But I won, and then I went off to the slam, and so I was definitely a poet in the scene. And my first recording was in, Nas was 99, but before that I did Antonio Hart. So I was getting to know the musicians. He's an Antonio Hart saxophone player. I was on his record, on Impulse Records, Here I Stand, which was named for Paul Robeson. Did the poem, The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth, from my book. And so, so I became a book publisher. I published my first book in 97. So I started More Black Press in my Brooklyn apartment. I had an agent. And so after the Apollo, I had a literary agent. I had Chuck Sutton was my manager. It's like the Sutton family, for God's sake. And I was supposed to sign, we had talked to Sylvia Rome from Elektra, with, Sony. I had my first big meeting at Sony. Like, this is when I'm 23. I turned down all those record deals, 3 of them. But they were just bad. They weren't good record deals. They were like publishing deals where they were like, half of my publishing, the game. So I knew the game enough to turn those down. So, and
with this, this connection is all happening while, like I say, the poetry scene's just everywhere. I think popping. It comes up and shout out my homie Fluent. Y'all know Fluent.
Yeah.
Fluent's like, man, I do not like that movie Love Jones.
None of us did. We all went to see it.
Love Jones did shift a lot more attention in that world.
Yeah. And I love Love Jones now.
Okay.
I love it now because I'm away from it. I was young and I was connected. We all had attitudes. And so we're like, this is corny. Because, well, you know, we were like, so I was on the poetry scene, but I was also really searching for my voice as a musician and as a music, and I wanted to do music. And hip hop was where I felt comfortable, but funk, rock and roll is where I felt my drum and bass, house, you know, because of, you know, Stretch This Much Across America's newfound interest in multiculturalism mixed with hidden agendas. My shit was fast. I was going fast. I'm more like T.I. as a poet. If you know what I mean? Like more like that cadence is more just fast and or like Talib, right? Like quick and lots of words. Not slow, not boom bap. That wasn't my poetry was fast. So, and I grew up listening to rock and roll because I grew up, you know, going to school with all these white kids. I grew up listening to Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Metallica for that matter. And I love Jimi Hendrix and I love Janis Joplin. And so rock and funk was like, I was trying to find that space, that black space, that Sun Ra space with poetry. Oh. Yeah, and so I was on that scene too. And later, it would, Black Woman Rock would get born out of being, you know, in that scene.
So in this same space,
this is a long interview. You ain't sick of me yet?
No. I like these
so much.
Coco interview. We going there.
Okay.
You offer it, and I want to get it.
Okay.
Because Lord knows it already took too long. Like for real. Like me and her are real tight. Like to the point where we're not talking every day, and I know people say this.
I see you at the smoothie place.
It will be like, yeah, she can throw a bat signal anytime.
I'm about to change my hat out. I feel like I've been on the interview so long, I need to have a different hat.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Hat. Switch my hat.
See, the first time ever, a wardrobe change. Mid-interview, it would be Jessica. I wish I had my little bill in here. I don't know where my bill at. It's way over there.
Lord have mercy. It's my life story.
All right, so.
I'm listening to you.
So in this same iteration, we also have soon King.
No, that's too far. That's way farther.
Way out.
That's way farther.
Okay.
Omari is my first son.
Okay.
Yeah. So So 1996, Saturn. Yeah, Saul's baby. Marcia Jones, my art director, for all my early books. Amazing painter, and one of my inspirations. And my sister, Saturn was. I met Sharif Simmons. So 1995, I met all these people. So Eargasms happened. So Eargasms was produced by brothers from Detroit, interesting enough. And yeah, that's crazy. And we did this record called Eargasms. That was one of the first poetry compilations from my generation that came out that was showcasing us. Mike Ladd was on that record, Brad Warron, Vibe Chameleon, Saul Williams. So that track that Saul did, I Will Not Rhyme on track, that's how Rick Rubin caught Saul caught the ear of Rick Rubin, and he got his first record deal. So you know, things were like poets were starting to become like, I became famous on the Apollo, and then poets were becoming famous in other spaces. Then Erykah Badu got her deal. Yeah. Erykah was on the scene with us too. Erykah was head rap. She would wrap her hair in towels. She'd be burning incense, and she was doing on the poetry scene. So some of her first like big music gig she did at the Sunday Tea Party, when the Sunday Tea Party was a big poetry spot that moved to the YMCA, and she did a big concert there. Like she was friends with all of us, and so people were growing musically. So the poets some of them were just doing the writer thing, right? So we're younger. We came before it was Kevin Powell and Asha Bandeli, Tony Medina, Willie Perdomo. Those are poets who had us by like 5 to 8 years.
So they're like, they're like the class like right before you all.
Yeah, and we're like
the shows was more literary.
A lot of them were more literary than we were, for sure, and we're definitely more hip hop. You know, we definitely had that call and response in our work, a different kind of energy in our work, and I was trying to reach big places. I was like, the bookstores and the coffee houses were not enough. I was
you're not necessary, and that's a flow, and that's a whole vibe that does exist, but you were not. Like, if anybody sees Jessica perform, or let's put it like this, I would be like, what drug is, if I walked into a place and Jessica like had a thick turtleneck and crossed her legs and was like, as I read, I'd be like,
oh, come on now. Stop
like,
it.
They have drugged
Not
my
for Allah.
They have drugged my homie. You know.
Listen, no. So I didn't, and I can do that dance, but it's not where I feel I'm not having the most fun. And I really love music, and so I was hanging out with Angela Moore from Fishbone, and Vernon Reid was doing gigs with. Vernon Reid was on the scene with us I was in a band with Greg Tate called Medusa Oblongata. So 3 poets, 3 3 vocalists, a drummer, a horn section, 2 drummers, a bass player. Crazy.
Parliament was going on with that.
That's what we were, and that's what we were. Very Parliament, very Sun Ra. Like Alice Smith, who was one of the best singers in the world, used to sing with me. Imani Azuri sang with me. So I had these bad vocalists. So that was some things that I didn't know was growing inside of me that later I would take to Black Woman Rock when I created that, when I left, New York City. But my first son is Omari Jazz. Shout out to Omari Jazz, who's an amazing music producer in Portland, Oregon. He's famous. So he scored my feature film.
All right, so kid, motherhood, family.
Yeah.
What is that grounding in the mix of a business growing, performance growing, creativity, culture growing? What's the flow of that?
It's a lot. It's hard to balance. It's hard to balance being a wife, right, and being a boss, and being a poet and an artist that is needed in the world. Like,
stand on that.
Well, it takes a certain kind of man, and haven't quite found that person yet. That really could balance out and have. Ego. The ego is deep, right?
Man, we got hella egos, and
hard.
definitely, I would imagine. I would imagine a man by your side would have to understand you got like hella juice. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
not even that, but I'm just a girl. Like, yeah, I guess, but the things, yeah. I mean, but I'm extraordinary, but still.
I'm saying from this perspective of manhood, like so.
Yeah, you gotta be in your shoes. You can't be shaky in your shoes around me.
Say like I call it like when you. People, I don't know. I call it Huxtable time, but people call it like pillow talking.
Yeah.
You sitting, you with your lady, and then you talk about everything you want to do.
Yeah.
Jessica's one of them type of people that be like, hold on 1 second, let me just call my homie. And sometimes if you're not confident enough in yourself, and it's like, damn, how was she able to open doors that I've been wanting to open for my whole life? So it definitely would take humility, the right balance and character, the right balance and understanding, and also the right balance and knowing that, like, sometimes, as I talk to another one of my poets, Nandi always, it's like, us as men, we're trying to, quote unquote, play a role and help a woman, I believe, how we feel like we're supposed to. And a lot of that just in complimenting, I can only imagine someone like you is not going to be the traditional stuff.
Oh.
So if you're coming with the traditional package of this is what a man's supposed to do, that ain't necessarily probably what's being sought after. So now I have to offer and learn how to compliment in whole other ways, which take us possibly out of our comfort zone.
It's also about me figuring out what my needs are, too. So I was also trying to do the traditional thing. I'm from Detroit, so I grew up very Midwestern, right? Steak and potatoes, right? Yeah. Mom and dad, till a point. My mom left my dad when I was like going to 7th grade. So I still had my dad throughout my life, even after she left him. And so, I got married. I've been married twice. I had 2 really big weddings. I was trying to be this traditional woman with a family, and I married people with kids. So my first son, Omari Jazz, he was just in his first year of life when I met Sharif. I married my best friend, who was a single father, and took on motherhood his biological mother wasn't able to take care of him in the way that he needed to be taken care of. So I stepped in some really.
You said first year,
shoes.
so like first. That's like really. It's not like 14 and.
Mom. No, his whole life,
that's like for real.
He just turned 29. He's my son, and he's been one of the joys of my life, and that's how I came into motherhood, was with Omari.
Okay, and what impact did that have on artistry? And you just
I took Omari has seen the world, just same way King has. I just took him with me, I didn't let motherhood. So the difference with Omari is that I was married to Sharif, and so I had someone else, right? King I've raised by myself. And so that's the difference. I wasn't a single parent with Omari. I definitely had a husband. And before that, he was my boyfriend. And so, and a New Yorker. And so, unfortunately, our marriage didn't work out. That was very hard for me. And so, as far as like having a kid and being an artist, that's all I know. And my
kid with you.
My second husband, Kenyatta, had 3 children, and I married him with 3 kids. People thought I was crazy. I remember Yassine being like, for real?
Hilarious. 1 second. All right, so for anybody that knows, it's like, talk about the pot and kettle. The pot and kettle.
Oh, really? You married how many? Okay, he had 3. I said never said anything against kids. That's one of my would have been husbands.
Yassine.
That's my brother, and I love him dearly. But we had like a young romance, and I love him and all his children, and anyone he marries, and I'll love him for the rest of my life. And so he's my family. I
know you guys gotta laugh about that joke all the time.
We laugh all the time.
It's like, hey,
family.
Remember this one?
He's awesome, and he's brilliant, and he's beautiful inside and out. And one of him and Talib are two of my favorite people in the whole world. I remember when he came to like do Black Star years ago at St. Andrews Hall. I was crying. Yeah, I was on the side of the stage because I was looking at my friends, you know. And then because we're showing each other now our pictures of our kids, you know, look at our kids and And Talib was so happy when I got pregnant because he knew how much I wanted to be pregnant. Because with Omari, it's great now, but there was a moment when it wasn't, when I wasn't able to see him when I was divorcing his dad, and it was a really hard time in my life.
I can imagine, because you said that was a really close friend.
Oh, Sharif was my husband and was one of my best friends, and so us breaking up was a friendship lost.
Yeah. And then also friends like share friends, and sometimes in breakups people kind of gotta like
they find their side. It was weird.
It's like,
we're all back together now. We all cool, but it took
a second. Sometimes people be like, one second.
It was horrible. It was horrible. But the most horrible thing was losing my son. Yeah. And there was a moment, and you know. Eventually, it got better. It took some time, and then me and Omari just found each other, and he got old enough to be able to call me and so our relationship could be just between us. Yes.
And also, like now, I know, and Kings get to that age too. Like as a kid grows, it's like the relationship shifts, and it's less.
They're very close, King and Omari, their whole life. So they're very close. He's very important person in his life, and that's his big brother. And they're both music producers, and so he's gonna spend some time. We're gonna do a record together called Mother of Sons. Actually,
that's dope.
That's gonna happen. So they're both really incredible music artists, and it's so deep because I feel like that's God, you know. And ancestors, because I was really mourning the loss of my son Omari and not having him every day, but I knew I had to get out of the marriage, and so it was just a part of it. And I remember just being so happy, you know, when King came. I feel like, you know, and they remind me of each other, and they're similar, and they're both music producers. They're very loving, very heart heavy Black boys and Black young men, and I felt like it was given back to me. I was like, yeah, I deserved. I mean, because my King's father, my second husband, had 3 children. So here I am now, you know, with 4 or 5 children. And so I've had some lives, but motherhood has been always a thread and a connection with my work. I don't know anything else, you know.
And which kind of, now I'm going to fast forward to like.
I love kids.
Our connection.
Yeah.
Because I remember. So, okay, how do I put
I'm glad we got away from dudes that can't, and why I be staying single by choice.
So,
Lord have mercy.
And Lord knows, I mean, it's Jessica loves love too. So I could easily see in 6 months Jessica being like, oh my God. I'm
always in love. I love love. But I've decided in 2024 that I'm only dating 40 and up. So I had to just make a decision. So if you're under 40, just leave me alone, please. Because y'all stupid. Y'all not ready for me. Y'all not mature enough.
I would not
40 and up.
Put all the money on that one. But
I have to just try, because you know what's funny? Because let me just say this, just on some funny shit. Like, but the men in their like the mid-30s and up, that they shoot their shot.
Oh, they shoot
the shot.
They definitely go.
The older brothers, people in their like mid-40s into 50, they don't.
We playing it cool. We want you to shoot the shot.
They way cool, and I will, and I have. So if I have to.
But with that, you trait. So you're spoke of before I meet you through actually.
Piper? Who?
It was Nandi from Nandi's Knowledge Cafe. Because Nandi was like,
I love you, Nandi. I started that poetry night on Thursday nights.
And that's what I was gonna say. So Nandi was like, if you want to be rapping up here, you can. You know how Nandi. I love Nandi. Yes. Nandi. So Nandi is like one of the strongest, hardcore entrepreneurs I know. So
right.
Nandi was like, look, if you gonna come up here, I think you need to come do your stuff on the day when Jessica gonna be back in town.
Yeah,
you should know Jessica. And I was like, I should. And she was like, she know your friend Zaina. I was like, for real? And Zaina. And then Zaina's whole personality is like another strong Black woman entrepreneur. Yeah. But it's like their personalities are the same but so different. Zaina was like,
they're mad chill.
Zaina's like, she knows some people. And
listen, Zaina is the one that connected me and Jeff Mills.
Wow.
To do our I love Zaina. She did that. Yeah.
And then I go to Nandi's. this is when it was off Woodward.
Yeah.
You're in there with that. I was like, damn, it's like a rapper in here. It's like, let me get my stuff ready.
I was hosting that open mic, man. It was so good. It was such good times. It was beautiful. I couldn't keep doing it, unfortunately, so I gave it to I think the black tie guys.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's where it's like, all right. It's like I'm thinking, I was like, but I'm a rapper, and it's like just say what you're gonna say. And then it's like I'm saying what I'm saying. Then
is that where I met you at Nandi's?
Yeah, and then Kevlar is like,
Kevlar. Yeah, so, that's who I was like, Kevlar, you should do it. You tall and fine, chocolate, and you got poems. Like I gotta go on the play. You gotta go do the poetry.
Speaking like James Earl Jones or something like.
Yeah, he's beautiful. Yeah, he's beautiful.
The way he approached the mic and everything.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time.
So this is, you're back in town and navigating, and it's like writer, author, poet, spoken word.
All of it.
King Mama.
Man, he's a baby. He came back. I was 10 months old when King came back. And I was in a weird space because I didn't know what I was going to do for a living or how.
I really, at that point, I was like me and I assume most other people.
Yeah.
I was like, Jessica's gonna be here that long. But
my mother cannot believe that I stayed. She's like, she just thought I'd go back to New York or to L.A. L.A. was the next place that I wanted to go because I hadn't taken over L.A. yet, and I wanted to do film acting and screenwriting and just see where I could take my work on a bigger screen. And I got home and I was like, maybe I'm supposed to be here. And then I realized when I started going out, because I was looking for my tribe. Because, I mean, I was older now. I was different. I had a baby. I was like, the people that I hung out with, they don't have babies right now. Their kids are grown already. And so I was in my mid-30s. And I was like, well, where the community at? And so I started finding people. And I found Sabrina Nelson, and I found Aku Kadogo had just moved back from Australia, and Khalid El Hakim, one of my best friends, hooked me up with her, and I started just finding the hip hop scene here. 5E Gallery open with Piper Carter. I didn't know Piper
at that time. You didn't.
I met her when I came home.
Okay.
And she knew who I was, but I didn't know Stephanie. Stephanie knew me too. Knew who I was.
But when Stephanie was in New York, you all never.
No, we didn't know each other, and so we lived in the same neighborhood. Still didn't know each other. She was in different groups.
Y'all were like crossing paths, but not
not connecting, and knew a lot of the same kind of people. Piper definitely and I have people in common. But for whatever reason, I was coming back to Detroit the whole time, though. At the Charles H. Wright, always brought me back. The Africa World Festival was bringing me back. Toya Hankins and Carla Glam Rivers was bringing. They were programmers that were my friends back in the day. Like, we got to bring Jessica for the show. So I never stopped coming to Detroit, but I just wasn't a part of the culture anymore. But I came home, and I was coming home from something horrible. I was leaving a very bad situation in Atlanta, and trying to get back on my feet. And had to, I wrote that poem, DHS poem number 7, about going to the DHS office for the first time. And I had my nervous breakdown and style at the Lofts and Merchant Road. Nobody was down there. The Nike store, San Murillo, none of that stuff was there. When I moved to back home to Detroit, it was, what was that, 2006? Beginning of 2007. I was down at Lofts and Merchant Road for 6 months at this short-term lease because I wanted to have my little nervous breakdown in style. I was traumatized by the weather. I did not want to deal with the snow, so I had valet parking. And my family was like, what are you going to do? What are you doing? They really couldn't believe that I was...
To hear this long.
They were like, what you... I was like, I have no idea. And I remember Susan Taylor, who I was just with in New York, had asked me to come for the 2nd anniversary of Katrina. King was still a baby. So what was great was King was young enough to still travel for free. So I didn't have a lot of money then. And so, Baba Haki gave me some money. Talib gave me some money. My friend Ruben Mitchell, my intern, rest in peace. Just little bits of money. $500. You got $500? Yeah. I just need a little bit of something. It didn't take me long to find my footing, though. And I was like, somebody going to remember who I am. Somebody going to remember.
And speaking of somebody remembering, another voice I want to uplift, rest in peace, Legacy.
Oh, God, my friend.
Legacy was who I always saw you with because that was the other person that every time it'd be like, Legacy would always be like, Car, you gotta.
I miss her voice. She loved King so much too. So that was someone that I knew when I came back. So that's one of the poets that I met.
I didn't know that. I thought you all already knew each other.
She's a little younger than me. I was gone, so I left. Because I left in 95. Like, I wasn't here for Cafe Mahogany.
Yeah.
Like, when Fluent was doing that. I met Fluent because I came back. They brought me as a guest.
Yeah.
And I met him briefly. But I didn't know him until I moved back home. These are people I met in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, they're new friends. You know what I mean?
And that's so because you and Legacy were so, I mean, rest in peace, but you all were so like always rocking.
Oh, she was great. I really loved her. I thought she was a great poet. She's very talented. You know, one of the more talented ones on the scene. And that's what I was looking for too. I was like, who are my peers? Who are the poets that are like getting down? And there weren't a lot that I was like blown away by. So here I go again. Like, I'm looking for musicians. And so that's what I did. I connected with Mike Banks, and Mike Banks became one of my best friends. And really, Mike kept me in Detroit, I mean, longer. There were like at least 3 or 4 years where it was because Mike was still here. I was like, Mike is here. Yeah, man. Just conversations with him, working, and then we worked out together. King knows him as Coach. So there was one summer where I couldn't make any of King's baseball games, and Mike Banks came to all of King's baseball games. Yeah.
Shout out Mike, Bad Mike.
I love you, Mike Banks.
Everything going on. So, like, you're touching, like I said, this interview, that's why it's so rich, because you're touching so many parts of Detroit culture. You're in techno, you're in hip-hop, you're in poetry, you're in literature, you're in broadcast, you're in journalism.
I'm writing libretto, you know, and then Black Women Rock. You know, Black Women Rock was something that I brought home from Atlanta. So I was in New York, but then I was in Atlanta for 7 years. So that's also, when I came to Detroit, that's where I had been, not from New York. I was in an ATL. And so it became my other home. So New York and Brooklyn and Harlem, and definitely Atlanta was it's home. A lot of artists there that I love in the ATL: Julie Dexter, Deion Ferris, Russell Gunn, Cabby Williams. I mean, these are my people. Jason Orr, shout out to Funk Jazz Cafe. I learned watching Jason Orr. My fellow Scorpio, I'm producing Funk Jazz Cafe, this huge event where he would take over science centers and the Tabernacle and do 5 floors of all kinds of capoeira and vegan food and a main stage with the Chronicle. And what was great, different for me, is that Jason, they had a poetry thing, like a room, but I refused to do the poetry room. I was like, put me with the band, man. Like, I want to rock with the Chronicle and Little John. And that's what he did.
Ain't that something?
That's what good. I mean, but it's how you, listen, you show up a certain kind of way. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And yeah.
So, Black Women Rock here.
Yeah.
What was the vision? How did that relationship build? How did you connect it?
I started 20 years ago, and I'm working now on bringing it back to Atlanta. I'm very excited. It's my 20th anniversary. 20 years ago. Thank you. 20 years ago, I started. Now I was producing for the National Black Arts Festival. They had a great festival. Then it was annual. Everybody was coming to National Black Arts Festival then. And this is 2004. And I wanted to do a festival that brought some of the women that I knew in New York, that did rock and funk music. I felt like that energy was missing from the festival. There was an edginess that wasn't there. And I was like, so I brought Imani Uzuri, Divinity Rocks, Timber Kali. That time I was bringing everybody's bands. So it wasn't like the Black Women Rock Orchestra yet. It was everybody, and a lot of women, a lot of us play with dudes. So we're guilty of also playing with too many men. And so we all bringing our bands. I showed Afro Punk the film, and I put Betty Davis's picture was big on the flyer, and it said Black Women Rock. Tribute to Betty. I ain't doing nothing different except I got rid of the guys. And we had a conversation. Marcia Jones was painting live on stage. It was beautiful. And we did a variety playhouse. So I'm working out to bring it back to Atlanta, where home base, where it started this year. Yeah.
And here, the flavor and the relationship at the museum.
Juanita Moore. God bless. I miss her so much. Juanita. Well, I did it. I brought it to, I had been home for a couple of years, and I said, I did this thing in Atlanta called Black Women Rock. It was really amazing. I would love to bring it to the Charles H. Wright Museum. And Juanita was like, okay, a rock concert in the Charles H. Wright Museum. I said, a rock concert. It's an educational piece, because Black women created rock and roll music, and we're the foundation of this music. It's the blues sped up. So I did my pitch thing to Juanita, and she said yes. And so the first one was free. We gave it away. It was packed to the point of fire code. And it was lots of all kinds of white folks showed up too, because I said Betty Davis, and Betty Davis has a cult following. And people who love funk and rock music and know their history, they know that she is an icon. And she was with us until 2022. when I did it first in Atlanta, her best friend Connie, who's my people now, called me and said, Betty Davis wants you to know, Jessica, that because she heard about it, because I didn't do it in my garage. I did it at the National Black Arts Festival. It was a huge festival at the time. And she's living in Pittsburgh at the time. And she wants you to know she's alive. I was like, tell Betty Davis that I know she's alive and that I know she lives in Pittsburgh. And can she come? So I've been trying to get Betty Davis to come out for 20 years. But I gave up about a decade ago, to be honest, because I realized that she wasn't comfortable. She was a recluse. And so she became, in spirit, like a North Star. She wrote me letters and gave me cards. And
beautiful.
Oh, my God. And I was gifted. So in her obituary, because I was asked to be at her funeral, the weekend, we had done Black in Morocco in Detroit in 2022, and that funeral was that Sunday. So I did Black in Morocco, then flew to be with her. I'm like literally, holding her best friend's hand and looking at Betty's picture. And I'm walked in and I know I look like her, and that's how I got to know Betty Davis in New York, is because Amir from The Roots, people know this story, but, Questlove was at a gig at the Wetlands, and he looked at me backstage and said, you smile with Betty Davis teeth. And I was like, thought he was flirting with me or whatever. And I was like, what, you saying something cute? He said, you know what Betty Davis I'm talking about? I was like, I know you ain't talking about that white actress, so let me look her up.
Hilarious.
And I looked her up, and Talib was like, yo, you do remind me of Betty Davis, big afro. And she looked like she could be my fine auntie, right? Same tribe. So I fell in love with her non-story. This Black woman that helped Miles Davis be better, that unloosened his tie, that really helped create jazz fusion in an indirect way, or a direct way for that matter. Because these relationships that women like me and women like Betty Davis have with men really do shift things in culture.
So for this, I want to suggest most people, if you watch it, it may be like one of my favorite creative series.
Yeah.
It's called Tales from the Tour Bus. But
on
Cinemax, they did one season about funk.
Yeah. Nelson George did it.
It is one of the strangest pieces.
I love
Betty
it.
Davis is amazing. I think
Nelson George
my
is
favorite
directed
one
that.
was the James Brown one. That was
that was good.
Crazy. The Rick James ones, because I study so much of Rick James from the stories that Nikki Gilbert's father, Clay McMurray. We used to, when I would record with the Basics reggae band, he would tell all the Motown stories because, he wrote If I Were Your Woman.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Norman Whitfield.
Oh, wow.
So they would tell all these wild Rick James stories. And I was like, man, that stuff didn't really happen.
Oh, yes, it did.
This is pre the Dave Chappelle skit.
Oh, okay.
So when the Dave Chappelle skit thing, like when I saw the preview, I told my sister, I was like, look, all I got to tell you is this.
I'm
if
rich.
Stories are anything like the stories that I've heard from them,
right?
You got to watch this show.
You got to watch it. That Tales was dope, and it was good because I like when I see people talk about Betty Davis. I'd be like, y'all were late to the game. It's cool. You know what I mean? Because I've been talking about her. I've been saying her name for such a long time.
And her influence shifted so much of Miles Davis bringing what Bitches Brew and like
she's on the cover.
The shift of where his music went.
That's
because before, I don't know if people know this, but like and Bitches Brew, and that had such a shift on all music kind of through where Betty was kind of coming and influencing Miles, because Miles was playing a lot more straight at the time.
Of course. Yeah, she unloosed. She's a rocker, man. She introduced Miles to Jimi Hendrix music, Sly and the Family Stone. That's who Betty was hanging with. She was hanging with the guys that I would be hanging with, if I was her age. And so so she influenced, and that she was never, and still has never been given her due. No Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acknowledgement. She was in the booklet when I was there. I'm like, give her, put her, put her in there. I wish they would have done it while she was alive, but
I definitely think she should be.
Yeah.
Especially being that she was rock and roll, and there's so many other genres. Like, as much as I love hip hop, some of the artists going in, it's like, I think we just need our own hip hop version of this. Yeah. But I guess they gotta do something new. Like, they have to have hip hop to like carry the legacy, quote unquote, I guess. Right. But in reality, it's still one of those things where it's like, I don't know how I don't know how rock and roll
Yeah.
Mariah Carey. No offense to Mariah Carey, but
No, she's not a rock and roll artist.
Yeah,
You know,
so-
no. Nona Hendrix is a rock and roll. Grace Jones is a rock and roll artist. Tina Turner is a rock and roll artist. We have examples of black
Yes.
women who play rock and roll. Yeah, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're giving lots of rappers and stuff. You know, are now inducted. So why not someone who's actually a rock funk artist?
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, so I mean, this is 20 years. I'm deep, and I'm working on taking it to Atlanta, and then I am going to have it here in Detroit. Unfortunately, we're not at the right this year. People have already been asking. I can't announce where until I get the contract signed, but we are working at having it at a very beautiful place this year. It's going to happen later in the year, but I'm going to do a series of pop-up intimate concerts that leading up to the big thing in the fall. So September is the time that I'm thinking the concert's going to happen here in Detroit. So, yeah. I wish I could announce it, but I can't yet. I'll come back.
I got you.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. And
I'm working on raising money. Like, I need money. So I need corporate dollars. I need sponsorship. I want to bring an icon to Detroit to celebrate during the 20th anniversary.
well, I can definitely do this because I've been overextending. Like, hey, I'm gonna do it here and I'm gonna be there. So. What we're gonna do the same way y'all see me when I ask for my videos and of my sponsorship money.
Yes.
I'm gonna get Jessica, and if y'all seen Jessica be bringing out Broncos and all types of stuff for photo shoots. So we're gonna do.
Did you say Broncos? Excuse me. I am a Detroit Black Jeeper member, and we drive Wranglers.
I'm talking about you got horses and all that.
Oh,
stuff.
I bring out horses too. I will.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Broncos for real.
Oh, real.
Not necessarily the
Stallions.
car, but
But that was still a shout out to my Jeep crew.
yes. But so we're gonna do. I can do that. I'll shoot your like the.
I got a
the
deck.
Give video. We can shoot the Give video.
Got a deck. Yeah. The what video? Oh, the Give video. Well, I have a beautiful deck, and it has that's the sponsorship thing that's like there, and
Okay.
please, they need to write the check because Black women's voices need to be
Shoot that to me.
supported.
But we can do that. We may even do that downstairs. But I'm saying, like, I don't know what vision you have. I know you're such a creative, but let's do that. Because,
Okay.
I mean, I'm always asking, people know when they see that Kari Frazier thing, like,
Yes.
Mom's my first fan and stuff, give some money, show up, support, show love. We can do
But
that.
we don't really have infrastructure here as of yet, that's in place. Like, we don't have a Bureau of Cultural Affairs, and we have, like, the new entertainment, arts and culture, department now with Shell Riley, but it's still developing. We really need money to be put into a cultural affairs or arts, the arts and culture department needs money to be able to support these events. And she has supported. So City of Detroit has supported. In the past I've had, Ford, Quicken. But I'm going to go ask those people for money again. But I haven't had, and what I would like to have, I told my sister Joy, was Black ownership, Black companies coming in and sponsoring Black Women Rock. And that should be happening.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I'm all about that coochie chocolate. So
Yeah, so I'm excited about that, and that's something that I brought home with me when I came home, and that's why I stayed. Is because I felt like there was a void here, and I feel like there's very few promoters like me that curate and produce events like myself.
You're right.
Drake Pfeiffer will be like the other one.
You're right.
Between me and Drake, I mean, with Urban Organic and what I've done with Black Women Rock, there's not too many more of us that curate and think outside the box when it comes to like what I want to see happen in our city. Like the bigger promoters can bring in Mary J. Blige, that's fine. But what about, there's an in-between that's missing. And a lot of the in-between is a lot of white rock groups. They get all the Fillmore and the other places. I feel like in Royal Oak, all those mid-level stages, like 1,500 to 3,000 seats, it's mostly a lot of white groups. And I want to see more soul and more funk, more rock artists in that space.
And that's where definitely control and ownership matter.
Yes.
And then when we talk about stages, I want to close on this before I ask the classic questions.
Yeah.
I am Scorpio.
Yeah.
We're here now.
We are Scorpio. The record is coming. We got 3 singles out now. We got Scorpio. The video hasn't been dropped yet, but it's done. Scorpio, Rock and Roll Nigga. Can I say Rock and Roll Nigga? Rock and Roll Nigga and Super Duper Star that features Talib Kweli. Those 3 songs are out, so please go get them. Me and Stephanie are working on putting up our Bandcamp. I'm gonna just never wanted to be on, so I'm going to be on Bandcamp finally. People are like, get on Bandcamp. So we'll be there soon. We're headed to Yellow Springs, Ohio. Dave Chappelle finally opened, a new comedy and music venue, kind of similar to the stage size of like a Blue Note in New York, at an old firehouse, which I cannot wait to get there. I've been wanting. So Kweli is curating this week Kweli Fest in Yellow Springs. It's only 3 hours up 75. Our gig is Wednesday, March 27th. I don't know when this airs, but it's Wednesday.
It'll be before then. So
good. It's Wednesday, March 27th. We would love Detroit to take over 75 and come on to Yellow Springs. Yellow Springs is a lovely town. It's a little hippie town in the middle of like a probably very Republican conservative state. But I love Yellow Springs, and me and my son King spent most of the pandemic there. Dave and his wife Elaine were very gracious in opening up. Well, he built a stage in the middle of a cornfield, and so yeah, I'm going to be there. But Bun B is performing. Reflection Eternal is doing a gig. Pharoah Monch is going to be there. So it's like three or four shows, but We Are Scorpio. Detroit is going to be there with the band, full band show on Wednesday the 27th. So tickets are at Ticketmaster.com. If you go to Ticketmaster and look up Jessica Care Moore, yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now the classic Detroit is Different questions.
Yes.
Very first car, year, make, and model, and year you got it.
Oh my God, I had what's that car called? It's silver. Oh my God, it's silver and long. What was that car called? We used to call it the hamburger.
Hilarious.
I had a yellow Mustang.
I'm all for nicknaming cars.
I had a yellow Mustang when I was at Wayne State. That was like probably my second car. The Zephyr. Dude, I had a silver Zephyr. My daddy bought me a Zephyr. I used to have a big, long Zephyr. That was my first car.
Now I'm going to have to Google a Zephyr. Where was the first place you went when you got it?
Probably go pick up my crazy ass friends, and we used to pack out in that Zephyr. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that was my first car. Was my
This
Zephyr.
already sounds like a car that was made with metal.
It was made with metal, and it was long. It looks like a Benz almost, like it's a long Zephyr. Oh my God, I had a Zephyr. And then I had a yellow Mustang when I was at Wayne State.
All right.
The yellow submarine.
That was that name?
Yes.
Yes, like name your car. Name your car.
Yes, yellow submarine.
Also, you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
Wow. I'm the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You Know How to Love Me by Phyllis Hyman.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
You got the people partying.
It's a jam. And then my second song, something crazy like Radio by Donna Summer.
Okay, all right. So you're
like
gonna have the
disco.
people. I was gonna say you're gonna definitely have a crowd.
I like to dance.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I like and I like 70s music.
I love 70s music.
I like 70s music.
I love
I'm a
70s music.
baby, so I like it. Yeah.
So last question.
Yes.
You can rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Jessica Care Moore. Just kidding. I know I do need a street though, but I want to get older and get a street. Who doesn't have? Does Chokeway have a street yet?
He has the drive on Wayne State, near Wayne State, but not a street. So
Does Coleman have one?
yeah, he has like the drive, but not the street. Coleman's probably the number one named answer.
Coleman A. Young. Yeah, Coleman. And then let me think about somebody else that need a name. Oh no, I know the person I would name. Tom Moore. My daddy. I would give my daddy a street.
Okay. He'd probably be like, I put concrete here any day.
Yeah, Tom T. We call him TD. Tom TD Moore. Thomas Davis. Tom Moore. Yeah, that one.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
My daddy.
All right.
He deserves a street.
So check the lower thirds. You should be following everything, Jessica. This was a very fun podcast.
Oh my God, it was so long. I hope it's okay. Please get the music. Follow We Are Scorpio on Instagram. Follow Black Women Rock on Instagram. Follow me at Jessica Care Moore on Instagram. I'm kind of on Instagram. They don't shadow block me as much as Facebook. So, and free Palestine.
Definitely.
Free Palestine. Stop killing people. Stop killing women and children. Stop the madness, y'all.
Yes.
Ceasefire now. So let me just say that too.
Yes. Well,
you didn't even ask me to do poems. Thank you.
Stop. Yeah. Stop fire.
Yes.
So like cease means like they may pick up like stop fire.
No, yeah. Not like a temporary one. Mm-hmm. Not a stop for humanity. Like what's happening in Gaza has been really weighing on me. It's really hard. It's very difficult. I cry almost every day.
You and most people, and it's definitely is shown and revealed things that people always say, oh, you're so pessimistic, you're so pessimistic. It's only revealing, like, as they say, the lights have turned on and the roaches are scattering.
That's right.
Because a lot of truths that I've been saying, and sometimes I want to seem like the crazy person, meaning I want people to come up like, I told you it wasn't that bad. I want people to be like, you was
It's
crazy.
so bad.
It's not good to get some of these phone calls of people saying, damn, everything you said was right.
Listen, but the thing is what's interesting to me is that since I was a freshman at Michigan State, we have known about Palestine. Like, we've been talking about Palestine forever. It's like a part of hip-hop culture. Everyone that came up in the 90s hip-hop scene, we all been wearing the scarves. We from Detroit. Everybody been wearing the scarves that represent Islam, we know what that means, freedom for Palestine. We've known that, all the activist community. So, like, people are just now learning about this. Just, you know what I mean? I'm like, no, this is not new information.
And let me say this, too, while we're on the topic, because this is definitely going into, like, shout out Raphael and Dr. Simmons when we had our podcast about that. That's on Rumble. But it's definitely not anti-Jewish. It's anti-Zionist. Because Zionism, even though that's the term they're using, is colonialism. Colonialism is gangsterism. Gangsterism that is at the oppression of murdering people.
That's right.
Taking their homes, taking their will, and at this point,
no, Zionists are racist Nazis. And so, and I just there was a person that's been my friend and associate for many years that just told me that she was a Zionist. And that if that makes me your enemy, so be it. These are her words on my Instagram. And so it's unfortunate because I have to disassociate myself with people who will be okay with the murdering of babies and children being starved to death. And to say that you're a Zionist out loud and you're in Detroit is a real deep statement.
And like I say, because Jewish people, no problem. I'm all for it.
It has nothing to do with
and
most of the Zionists. They're not Jewish. They're not Jewish. And most of them are they're
putting both together. The way they're putting both together.
No, they're not Jewish. It's not Judaism.
It's the same way that people in the Ku Klux Klan said, "I'm Christian."
Yeah, right. Yeah, the worst kind. They're not Jewish by faith. Let me say that. I know one of my other mothers. I was on the phone with her for 2 hours last night, helping me through this because it's been a very difficult realization to realize somebody you thought you knew. Yeah. So we have a lot of quiet racists among us, that are sitting around us, and we're buying things from their stores, and we don't know this. And I like to know what people are, so I appreciated her telling me who she was. And they'll say things like, "Oh, we believe in a free Palestine." No, you don't. You want it on Israeli terms, and that's not fair. You know what I mean? And they were the people that were there first. Like, if they do their math and do the history, is like those Muslims were actually the first Jews. They were Jewish that they converted to Islam. They're the same people. They're the same people.
It's such like right there history too.
It's just about humanity. It has nothing to do with religion. My other mother, who's very Jewish, I love you, Mariam. Thank you. She remembers when she went to Israel for the first time. She said, "Jessica, I was a Zionist too." And my friends who are Jewish told me that they had to sometimes disconnect from their own families because they are getting brainwashed from childhood that this land belongs to them, but the African people who were Jewish can't go there. And they can't claim they're in. They were Jewish. They were by faith, and they can't go back to Israel, right? So they're a bunch of white people. They're Europeans, and no, I mean the last thing I am is anti-Semitic. I'm just anti-evil. I'm like, if those were white Jewish children being murdered, I would be fighting for them just as hard. Yeah. White, black, Puerto Rico, I don't care. What's happening in the Congo is ridiculous. What's happening in Sudan.
What's happening in Haiti right now.
What's happening in Haiti. Like, the world has gone mad. It's a very, very sad
some
time.
Things to pay attention to. And
stay prayerful. And to my mothers and sisters who are fasting for Ramadan, I'm trying to catch up. Blessings to you and your Ramadan. Have a beautiful Ramadan. I'm proud of you. And I'm going to have like an Eid at my house so I can get all my Muslim community to come over and eat.
Yeah, I'm doing as they say, you doing it the Shiite way. I'm still doing liquids.
Yeah, I'm drinking water.
I'm doing liquids, but no solids until after. That's me.
So I'm gonna have I'll invite you then because if you're fasting, I'm gonna pick a night and have it eat at my house. So I'll invite you over.
Let's do it.
All right, the interview has to stop. For God's sake.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today